Welcome to AdSQA's latest podcast. Today we are talking to Bukola Amatayo. So can you give us a little insight into generating reports and recommendations?
Okay, all right. So let's assume all those processes had either to explain are done, my testing, my retesting, my regression is done, and I have a clean bill of health, quote and unquote, or I have arrived at the exit criteria, which would have been defined in the test plan. Maybe I want 90% coverage, or I want all test areas that are zero or one criticality done, whatever my exit criteria is. Once I've arrived at that, fine. So we issue a test report. So let's see what my documented test cases, all of them, the actions, the expected results, the actual result, was a pass? Usually at this point, okay, yes, I should have passes to cover the coverage that had actually been identified in the plan as what is allowed in order for me to say, okay, this is fine. Now I can exit the testing. This is a criteria for exiting the testing phase. So I put that out and then generate, sometimes it's a bar chart, it's a pie chart sometimes, so that in one glance you can just see the proportion of the total test cases that we had, how many percentage of it passed, how many failed, how many for whatever reasons could not be tested. For example, there are times in your UAT environment, that's in your test environment, you do not have an exact replica of your live environment. And that can happen in my own kind of domain, because, for example, let me say I'm testing certain things, transaction processing, that ordinarily should send SMS to a customer. So in a UAT environment, I do not want to do that because I do not want my customers getting SMS and they are frantically running into the branches to find out what is happening. So usually that is an item, for example, that is disabled and we cannot test in our test environment because that's just one exact example where you do not do that. So in that kind of scenario, anything that is SMS related, you do not test. We just wait until it gets to production. So those kind of items, you get to identify them and say they are not tested, probably during the pilot phase. When the application is in production, then we can test them. So you have all that documented. We have the big picture test report that is very detailed, identifying all the test cases, 100, 200, 150, whatever the amount, and then the exact action that was taken to do them. And then you now have a summary report. Usually that's for management. Management usually are not interested in the details. They just want to look at a glance. Okay, this is what you've done. How many passed? How many failed? Do we have any high priority risk items in the non-tested or in the field? No. Okay, fine. Have we reached the exit criteria? Yes. Okay, fine. Let's take a consensus and say, okay, that means this is good to go. So that's what is done. We generate test reports, detailed and summary, such that for those that just want a summary, they get to look at it at a glance. And for anyone that is interested in the detailed portion is available. Like I mentioned, in our own terrain, the detailed is usually required because eventually we usually have yearly audit reviews where you have external auditors coming in to look at the testing phase of all the applications that has been turned to production in a particular year. So that is required. So we usually have that done. So that's review, the generating of test reports. Also, there are times that during your testing process, you may identify certain things that may have been implemented in certain ways. And because you interact more with the business users than the developers do, you may understand the way they reason. So I may come and say, okay, see, the user experience for this particular functionality should be done in this particular way. It's a recommendation. Or I think this error message is not worded rightly. Or for this particular kind of failure, do not put this kind of message. Let's put something descriptive, different kind of things. The list is long. So you have different kind of things that could come up, and then you proffer recommendations, meaning a particular test case may not have failed. It's fine functionally, but we just feel the user experience should be a little better. I know my users, and I think they will understand better this way. And also, certain things should be done so that it also doesn't pose too much unnecessary activity for the support team by the time the application is in your live environment. So those kind of recommendations come in as we generate the test reports as well. So we proffer recommendations. We think this should be done this way. We think this in alignment with the business requirement. All of them has to be in alignment. So that's basically what we do when we generate the test reports and then proffer recommendations.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. This is one part of an interview with Bukula Amatayo. Additional parts of the interview will be released on our podcast page. If you're an ASTQB certified software tester and you would like to also share information about software testing, or you would like to discuss getting ready for certification exams through ASTQB and ATAS QA, feel free to contact us. www.atsqa.org